Are you founder buried in emails from customers? Complaints, sales leads, support tickets all mixed together? Here's the fix: use AI to sort them automatically. Set it up in minutes, no code, no cost. Now you know which emails need you and which don't. Want the exact steps? Keep watching. We break it down for you in this video. Welcome to Future You Strategy Group's channel, where we are today talking about transformative AI solutions. I'm Renjit Philip. I'm a partner Future You, and we've got Dhruv Arora, who is a senior partner and who is in charge of the AI practice for us.
Thanks, Renjit. Glad to be here.
So today you are taking us through email automation, right? And can you just tell us what part of email triaging? And I know that many businesses struggle with managing inbound email, and email is just all these require some sort of triaging. So over to you. What are you going to show us?
Yeah. With the spirit of supercharging business efficiency, today I think we'll cover a way in which you can efficiently supercharge your email classification workflows. So, this is the small use case that I have chosen to actually just showcase to you today. Specifically, we would like to cover how email classification can impact a travel industry or a tourism industry service provider.
Right.
Consider this scenario. There is a potential client who is looking for services of a travel service company. That potential client would typically do an online research. They will go through your website, they will go through your social media. Then they would probably send out an email mentioning their requirements. Most probably, the chances are it will be sent after office hours during a weekday. So now one of the travel service providers actually sends a reply immediately after a few minutes of receiving that email. And this is not an automated reply. Thank you for writing to us, blah, blah, and we'll reach out to you shortly. No, this is not that kind of a reply. The response has contextual understanding of the inquiry. The insight that we wanted to share with you today is in the past, if you have to develop a system like this, it would require significant investment in machine learning infrastructure, in machine learning resources, in data training. That would make it almost inaccessible for all small scale and medium sized businesses. But with the advent of LLMs, the barriers have significantly lowered. These LLMs display very sophisticated and nuanced understanding of natural language, and they can be used to create such workflows with minimal setup.
Yeah.
And recognizing this potential of these LLMs, there are many workflow automation tools that have cropped up. And today, in this session, we will cover one such tool and create an email classification engine to classify inbound inquiries into a set of preset classification categories.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, so the tool that we're going to use today is called Make.com. Make.com is one of the leading workflow automation tools. They provide resources and solutions for automating almost all kinds of business workflows. Interestingly, they also have a free pricing tier. And with that free pricing tier, you can actually create and monitor some very basic workflow automation workflows. So today I'll focus specifically on scenarios. Different tools actually call workflows with different names. Make.com calls them as a scenario. So scenario is essentially a workflow that you create. Although I've already created a workflow like this, but let me just create a new one starting from scratch. Okay. It's also a good idea to actually map out the workflow beforehand. I also have a tool called Mermaid that I use for this. This is the sample workflow that we are working for one of our partners. It is a workflow mapping tool. So this is one of the two workflow that we are creating for one of our partners in which there is a multiple layers of classification that happens for an email. And today in our session, we'll actually cover these three steps. You connect an email account and it starts monitoring those email accounts. You process the data, if you want any filtration in terms of data, of whether it should come from a particular account or go to a particular inbox or all of that.
Mhm.
Then you create a classification system. So this is where the calls will go to the LLM. So we'll select a large language model for this. We will create a flow in which the emails are classified for four different categories. We'll classify it for context, classify it for intent, and classify it for source. The first step is we want to connect an email account to it. So you just figure out email. It'll tell you get email, watch email, send email. So we'll start with watch email. Since I already have an account connected, it is picking up that account. But if
Got
you
it.
want, it'll add a new account. You can use Google. If it is
Okay.
provided on Microsoft, you can use this. If it is others, neither of these two, then you can use others. So mine was from GoDaddy. So you select others. This information you get either from your GoDaddy account
Yeah.
or you do a simple online search. You can actually ask what is the IMAP server account for GoDaddy. It will give you all these details and
Right.
you get the server name. Port is already entered. You secure yes, explicit no. You don't change any of this. And then enter your user ID and password here. So once this is done, it will read your account here. So once you connect, it will fetch the folders that are there in your account.
Okay.
So this is when you know that all the connection to the email account is successful. So you
Okay.
can select the folder which you want to read. So
Right.
inbox is what I've selected. Then these are the further criteria that you can use in case there is a further filtration. So you can select whether to see read all emails, only read emails, unread. So let's say unread. You can enter sender, recipient if needed, subject.
So
All of that is additional criteria for the current use case. So another step here is to select the first email just to see whether they have access to your email inbox or not. See, there is an error here.
this is good because it'll tell the user how to recover from situations like this.
So now the account is connected.
Okay.
You can see it has fetched the 100 emails in the inbox. Let me select this. For this use case to test, we'll select one email only. So I've selected this one email and
Yeah.
you save it. So this is the first step of watching the email.
Right.
Then you click here. The next step, now we know that we have to classify, we will get the information about an email. We have to send it to an LLM model. So currently they support OpenAI. So we'll select OpenAI. Within OpenAI, there are many options that you can select. So
Mhm.
currently we'll select only create a completion. Again, it will ask you to add your OpenAI API key. Since I've already added, so I will just show you. So you can name a connection, enter your API key. So
Right.
they have help links also available. In case you don't know how to fetch your OpenAI API key, you just click here. It will take you to OpenAI platform.
Right.
For example, let me just show where it goes. Since I've logged in into my OpenAI platform, it will take you to the dashboard, and this is where you can select your API key. If you don't have, you can create a new secret key assigned to a project in case if you want, and you create. This is the APK key it shows. So you go back, you paste it here. Organization ID is an optional field. So once the connection is successful, it will come to this, the next phase, which will say, what do you want to do? So you say chat completion. You select the model. It will
So
fetch all the models which are available.
any logic in the model selection? What is better for this kind of an approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends upon your workflow. Typically, if there is multiple stages of classification that you need, you can select a better quality model as your first classification system. So if you want a more general capability, you select the most advanced model. But if you want a simple task, for example, if you know that the email is a sales email and you just want to categorize within sales email, you choose a maybe not the latest and the most costliest model, you select a lower model or a mini model. But if you are classifying a very general email, for example, the email could be a sales email, could be a complaint email, could be a service email, it can be from a client, it can be from a vendor, it can be from your employees, then you select the latest model with the highest capabilities.
You have to pick the right model for the right job, is what you're saying.
Yes. You start with a model which you think barely should be able to do it, and you start monitoring the workflows. If the workflows efficiencies is not up to the task that you are expecting, then you switch to a higher cost model also.
Got it.
So let's say GPT-4o system. Okay. So now comes the crucial step of giving instructions to the model of what the task is. This is a key aspect of this workflow. So, like you use GPT chat, and there are two things that a model expects. One is the system prompt. The system prompt is a prompt that sets the overall goal of that task. And then the user messages within the overall framework of the goal that it's to be accomplished. This is the task that needs to be done. So you first set up a system message. So system message is an important piece of instruction that you give to an LLM, which defines, as I said, goals, the constraints, and you also give them certain examples of what a typical inflow would be and what is the expected output. So time, efficiency, angles, I have already created a system prompt. So this is the system prompt. So a good prompt has certain good structure. So first of all, you establish the goal that you are looking for. You, if possible, you give them a profile, a personality for that particular goal. So you are an intelligent email classification assistant that categorizes email based on. So this is the classification as you asked. What level of classification you want the LLM to do. So you explain them in simple languages. This is an example of how sophisticated the LLMs have the understanding of natural language. They can differentiate context, intent, and source by looking at the email text and email body. Unlike in the past, if you had to do something like this, you had to create a full-fledged machine learning algorithm which will have feature extraction. But with LLMs, you don't need all of that. You just simply tell them you have to understand context, intent, and source, and they will understand it. To make the understanding better, you also tell them the output that you want. So, for example, we have said the category, we want the output in the form of category, intent, source, another parameter that I call as confidence, which the LLM will fill in depending upon how confident it feels that I have done the task and recommended actions. So in the category, you can define the possible categories. In intent, you define the possible intent. This is where your business intelligence come into the play.
This is where you need to understand the business.
So this is where you understand if the email comes, these are the 4 or 5 possible paths that email communication can take, and you define those paths. Sometimes you have to have that kind of judgment whether the task is becoming too complex for an LLM to do in one shot. So then with experience, you get an intuitive understanding of, yes, this is reasonably complex. This is a slightly higher complex. You reduce down the complexity. Then you have a sequence of LLM calls. For example, you split this into two. You first categorize into booking or cancellation or some other thing. And then in the second step, you categorize if it is a booking, is it an urgent booking? Is it a new client? Is it an existing client? All of that you can do in steps. So you define the system. Similarly, in the system prompt, you also need to tell certain examples of what the data will come in and what should be your response like. And modern LLMs have now developed this capabilities to understand the requirements of output and they give you the output in the required format. For this flow, since we want to categorize it into 4 categories and also to store that information, we ask them to give them in a format that it is friendly to understand in the form of categories. And you save it. So once the system prompt is entered, you then add a message. This is the user prompt. Now the information goes to LLM is first the system prompt that we defined will go, then the current task prompt will go. In the current task prompt, the user information will say, please, and in this now you select. So remember how we have shown the examples? We have shown the examples as email and body and subject and body. So you create the prompt in the same manner. So this is the flexibility that some of these workflow tools allow, that you select subject and after that you put the subject here. So what it does is it will read the email, it will fetch the subject line, it will place the subject in this placeholder that we have given. Then you say body and you go and find the body. It is text content connected here. In case if you want to have a script running before the information, depends upon what you are getting inside. Since you are getting text, but if you are, for example, if you are getting numbers and you wanted to do some basic mathematics before it is sent for any further next step, you can do all of that. So these are other things that are there, dates and datas, and you can even actually run certain functions based on the input that you get and convert that into a required format, and then it goes to the next step. So all of these workflow automation tools allow a lot of flexibility in handling different types of data at every step. Okay, so let's see other you've saved. So now what we have done so far is we have connected the email account, we have fetched the email, we have connected our OpenAPI account, we have created the instructions for the task that the LLM has to perform. And now we want to just say what we need to do with the output. So I think for this use case, let me just add a Google Sheet. You will sign in, it will just connect to your Google Drive account.
You are
Yeah.
using Google here, but you could have potentially connected to the CRM system of the travel company or whatever system you wanted to potentially using this system.
Since I have already created a sheet, I will select that with the name. The reason in the system prompt, we mentioned the required format of the output and we asked these four categories in the output. So I have created these four categories as the column names and also the raw response. So these are the columns I've already created in the Google Sheet there. It fetches all those columns here. So now what we need to do is in each of this category, what is to be entered, we have to tell the system. So once you click on this, it will show you both the input and the previous step outputs.
So this is basically what API is sending you back after your prompt.
Yes.
And this was the email which we had read previous to that step, the one in red.
Yes. Yes. So since I have asked the OpenAPI model to send the response back in a JSON object, I have to tell that to the workflow and it will parse it.
Okay.
And then you save it. So this is when it will understand that there are 5 keys that are coming
Right.
in the result. And those results then will be individually added to the respective column text.
And I presume in your system prompt, you had given that JSON structure, which is matching your sheet structure, right? The columns in your sheet.
Yes.
Okay.
See, the result should show the 4 possible categories. Run once and save it. Okay. Now let's see. I think we'll have to run it once so that it recognizes the options.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So let's run it. It'll test.
Yeah, it'll tell
Now
you
it is
where
fetching.
any failure if it happened or whatever, right?
Yeah, let's see. It's fetched one. See, it fetched the email.
Right. So
It got the email. I had made a booking. This is the sample email I had sent to my email ID. And it sent a request to OpenAPI and result out. Now you'll see there are 2 messages which are gone. One is the system, which is the system prompt that we had sent. See, this is gone. And then you see the second, which is the user. So
right.
please classify the instruction. Subject is the subject line that was the email and body. And this is the output. And you see the result. So it has
found out that
categorized.
it's
It
a
has
cancellation.
cancellation, intent is refund, source is customer, confidence is high, and 0.93 is quite high. Recommended action is forward to the refund team. See, this is how simple email classification has become nowadays in the age of LLMs. In a live use case, you would actually have further steps and further workflows after each classification. It can be human in the loop. It can be, if the confidence is high, it can be the next step of what is the refund classification. It can be notifying to the sales team or a service team, and then they can respond. Or it can be an email response and then also forwarded to the sales team. All of that is possible.
Okay, got it. If the confidence goes low, that means you bring the human back into the mix, right?
Yes, yes.
So only for complicated scenarios, you actually need the human. Otherwise, it can just work in the background.
Yeah. So now, since it is run once, it knows that the result has these formal 4 categories. Then you can come back and add the respective category within the respective column.
I see.
Source and source, confidence and confidence.
So this is a good debugging method that in case you don't see all the values, then run the flow once, you'll get the variables.
Yeah. So the all the steps which are passing with success, they will show, and then you can see where the bottleneck is or the error is, and you are rectified. So now raw response object is I wanted. So for your further analysis, in case once you create an advanced flow where you are re-evaluating the cost of this workflow, you can start capturing this prompt tokens as well. Column H has prompt token, column I has this, and it will start storing that tokens for further analysis later.
Okay, got it.
Also, in case you want to further analyze this Excel sheet for some evaluation, you can capture what was the input and the output. Both of them are captured. So if you want to capture subject line, just to cross verify all subject line emails have been read and what was their response to generate a business MIS or to do any other further analysis, you can capture the subject line also.
Got it. So that keeps
So,
a sort of audit trail for the business to see
yeah,
how the
exactly.
AI is managing.
Exactly.
Got it.
So now let us run it once again. Let's see whether it writes in the Google Sheet. Since I've selected that same email, it is currently running on the same email. Yes. So now it is written.
Okay.
So one of those parameters is not working. Let's see recommendation.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the essence of this flow.
See, was it the last call that it updated?
Yeah, it was the last one. Okay, so now this is how it is writing in the Google Sheet in the categories that we decided in
Yeah,
the columns that we wanted, and you can do further analysis in this. So this is just an example of how you can use these workflow automation tools to use OpenAI or LLM models in your workflow and make them intelligent and personalized.
absolutely. I think this is a good place to pause this, right? And we could add other steps onto this as we discussed. You can make it as sophisticated as you want. Now, your workflow basically has AI embedded into it. That's the takeaway from this demonstration, right?
As I said earlier, to build even a simple workflow like this, where you are classifying an incoming email into multiple categories, this would have been almost impossible for any small or medium-sized businesses before the advent of LLMs. It would require at least three machine learning algorithms, a bunch load of training data, some
Yeah,
machine learning resources, and it will be extremely costly to actually set up and run. But now you can see in a free tool, without spending any money, just some OpenAPI tokens, and these will be hardly worth few cents, 400, 500 tokens that are consumed in an API call. You
right.
can actually build a very personalized and intelligent workflow for any of your business processes. This can be repeated for any channel. So
Yeah,
you just change the channel from email to WhatsApp or any other channel. Think of any other service email where there is an internal workflow that happens. You can start to automate it.
yeah.
And these LLM models are intelligent to understand the context and respond according to that context. And every few weeks, you get a new model with enhanced capabilities of understanding language and the capabilities of connecting them with tools. So the workflow can become more and more sophisticated.
Like the complicated workflow that you showed earlier.
So, just to give you an idea, they have tagged categorization of urgency. So, if it is highly urgent, you proceed with the different steps. If it is not that urgent, you proceed with your normal workflow. Similarly, there is a classification. If any of the above classifications is not possible, select human in the review and forward it to the relevant human in the loop. There is a way in which you can classify. So, this will involve fetching your customer database, and you can see whether the lead has come from an existing user or a new user. If it is from an existing user and it is a VIP, regular loyal user, you can have a workflow accordingly.
Perfect. So it can get as complicated and as bespoke as possible. And I think I just want to touch upon that point that you mentioned that these are now cost has come down quite dramatically. Of course, there is a cost of building it, but once it's built, the ongoing cost could be quite low, and it's now suddenly very comparable to the cost of a human being that you're putting on the job just to write emails for a cheaper price. You could take care of a lot of that work with LLMs.
Reducing manual efforts, reducing the amount of repetitive work that employees do so that they are free for doing some more value added jobs, having faster turnaround times. These are some of the themes through which you can actually expedite your or supercharge your business workflows.
Yeah.
This is one of those use cases that we wanted to highlight in this call.
Perfect. Thank you for taking us through that, and can't wait to look at the next use case soon.
Pleasure.